Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
NetJets, the global private aviation leader, is known for personalizing every detail of your travels. Because NetJets standard is not just to meet their definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours. Discover more at netjets.com.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cognitive Recalibration podcast. As always, I'm your host, Shravan. We got Tyrone over in Melbourne.
Hey, everyone. You're over in
New York.
NYC, New York City.
Yes, that's
home
right.
Home of the Doctor Strange.
Home of the Doctor Strange, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Also called the Big Apple. I looked this up yesterday. You know why it's called the Big Apple? Some horse racing thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Some horse racing. I thought it was, maybe because Manhattan, I don't know, it looked like a weird apple or something, but no, it's not. And it doesn't look like, I guess it's an island, but not really. Off topic though, because we're going to be talking about the Doctor Strange, in particular Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I always stuff this title up. Like I always get the words like in the wrong order, but I got it right then, right? In the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so my most anticipated movie of this year, actually. Was it yours as well?
I
think you said something else from memory.
Yeah, Morbius.
Yeah. And obviously that lived up to your expectations.
Exceeded it.
So, yeah, it was my most anticipated movie. So
I think I said Thor. I can't remember.
You might have said, what's after Thor? What's the other Marvel movie this year? Black Panther.
Is there another one?
I thought
Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panther was this year, right? And no, there was also, I think you might have said a DC movie.
I think you might Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which isn't even coming out this year anymore.
Oh, did it get delayed?
Yeah, it's coming out next year.
Ah, that's a shame, because it could have been another multiverse movie that we reviewed this year. But yeah, so let's get into this movie. So as usual for our reviews of comic book movies, we'll do a bit of background on the movie itself. Then we'll talk about the comic book origins of one of the characters in the movie. In this case, it will be Doctor Strange, because we haven't actually ever talked about his origins in the comics. And then we'll get into our thoughts, spoiler-free, on the movie. And that's important because there's a lot to discuss in terms of spoilers for this movie, but we have a dedicated spoiler section later in the review, and we'll clearly indicate once we get into that section where we will be talking full spoilers. And in this case, it's going to be a series of questions. It's going to be a bit of a Q&A. I've got the questions. Apparently you've got the answers. So
Yep, I've got all the answers.
So let's see how that goes. Okay, so background on the movie. So it's directed by Sam Raimi. So this is his first movie that he's directed since Oz. Do you remember that movie with like James Franco?
Yeah.
So that came out in 2013. So it's almost been 10 years since a movie's come out, directed by Sam Raimi.
I think he's done short films.
Yes.
He did like that TV show on Quibi as well.
Oh, yes. That's right. Yeah. But in terms of theatrical movies, this is his first. And then obviously his first comic book related movie since Spider-Man 3. Okay, so that's about Sam Raimi. An interesting thing about this is Scott Derrickson, who was the director of the first Doctor Strange movie. He was initially meant to direct this movie, and it was initially meant to be like a a horror movie, like a full-on horror movie. There are elements of horror in this movie, but due to creative differences, he left this project, and then they got Sam Raimi on later. But the scripting and all of that was already done. So in terms of kind of what's meant to happen in this movie, I think that was already locked down a little bit. And then Sam Raimi came on. So we'll talk about that when we get into our thoughts. Obviously, Benedict Cumberbatch is back as Doctor Strange. Elizabeth Olsen is in this. So Wanda is in this movie. It is as much a sequel to all of the movies in Marvel as it is to the WandaVision TV show. So we'll also talk about that. There's a new character introduced in this movie, America Chavez. She is played by, and I'm going to butcher this because I really don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Xochitl. It's spelt Xochitl. So sorry if I mispronounce that, but Xochitl Gomez plays her character. And,
You've definitely mispronounced it. I think it's Xochitl.
Xochitl?
Yeah, let's leave that one.
Yes.
Let's just move on.
Well, when you interrupted me, I thought you knew how to pronounce it. So I was like, oh, okay, you actually know.
Nah,
but
I don't. But what you said was incorrect.
Okay, you know that I'm wrong, but you don't know what's right either.
Yeah.
Okay. You know when they have the end credits sequence where they have like, all the main characters in the movie and they show the actors' names and they have a like a picture of them and so on. When they have the end credit sequence, they had this gentleman in the end credit sequence, and from what I remember, I'm pretty sure he's only in one scene. So that was Michael Stolberg. Do you remember him? He plays
Is he the other doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure why he was credited as one of the main characters in this movie, but okay, he's there. Rachel McAdams returns as Christine in this movie. Danny Elfman is the score. So he does the music for this one. It's different to, I think it was Michael Giacchino for the first one, and he composed the Doctor Strange theme as well. So Danny Elfman was fine because obviously he's a frequent collaborator with Sam Raimi, so that's why we saw him in this one. So I thought the score was good, but we did miss the Doctor Strange theme. Do you remember hearing it in this movie? Because I don't.
It is in there at some points.
Yeah,
it's in that first battle sequence when he. When he like suits up. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I thought they would use it more. But anyway, the music was fine for what it was. Budget was $200 million, and box office wise, I think it's expected to do pretty well opening weekend. It's going to be the biggest opening weekend so far this year. So, but in terms of how it does in the long run, we'll have to see. All right, Doctor Strange, the character. So when do you think he first appeared in comics? I don't know. I actually don't know this one. Lots of good characters appeared at like the 60s, so
yeah,
probably somewhere around then.
So he's an older character. In fact, he is basically about as old as Spider-Man in terms of in the comics, and he's also created by the same comic artist as Spider-Man, so Steve Ditko. He first debuted in 1963, in July of 1963, in a comic called Strange Tales. His team affiliation, so we already know that he's been a part of the Avengers, he's been a part of the Defenders, he's been a part of the Illuminati. I'll leave that there. And there's other teams that he's been part of, so Midnight Suns, New Avengers, The Order. What's The Order?
No idea.
And what are the Midnight Suns?
The Midnight Suns are they're just another group of superheroes. It's got Moon Knight in it, actually.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like a group that he should be part of, since it's midnight, Moon
Knight, yeah. It's got like Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, those kind of guys, yeah.
So are they just guys that creep about during the night?
Pretty much.
His partnerships obviously Wong, which we've already seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ancient One, which we've also seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the other one that he's had a notable partnership with is Clea, who we don't know yet, but maybe we will know soon. So I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't know who Clea is. Do you know who Clea is?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that later. Abilities. So he's a master of magic. He utilizes mystical artifacts such as the Cloak of Levitation and the Eye of Agamotto. Genius level intellect, skilled martial artist, and gifted physician and surgeon. And I think we've seen all of those in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I guess it's pretty comic book accurate in terms of how they've depicted him in the movies. No comment on that?
No comment. Did you want to comment on that?
I was waiting for you to say that. Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I don't think there was a comment necessary. I guess he's comic book accurate.
Yeah, cool. By the way, this is going to be a completely unedited episode because, like we said, I'm currently in New York, and we're recording this on a remote platform. So I'm literally just going to stop recording and then upload this.
We'll put it straight out.
Put it straight out, so fully unedited. So you're gonna hear all the mistakes that we make in our usual episodes.
All the pauses, all the awkward pauses.
Cool. All right. Okay, let's get into our thoughts on the movie. So before we get into that, so obviously I did watch it in New York. We could talk about both of our experiences actually, because it's a bit of an event movie. There's a lot of stuff happening in this. So firstly, I watched it in a theater in Lincoln Square, which is not too far from Central Park. There was a guy dressed up as Doctor Strange that attended the screening. I think I posted it on Instagram in the stories. And the audience was pretty receptive. Like, obviously, in Australia, when you watch a Marvel movie, and it's got better over the years, but like people do leave before the end credits. Like
they did in my theater.
Here, literally no one left. Like, it was like 95. It was 100% full theater. And by the end of the credits, but like after all the credits had finished, there was still like, I would say 95 to 98% people still there. So everyone was still sitting down. So obviously they were big Marvel fans. There was a lot of clapping and cheering, like not Infinity War level.
Not excessive.
Yeah, but there was some excitement in the cinema. And yeah, like it was a good experience. It was good to watch it in with a crowd that's so. I think basically all of them were like comic book fans, so it was good. But also, I think the reaction, maybe just because of the movie, it was not as crazy as it could have been. Let me just say that. Like, if I watched it with this crowd for Infinity War, I think it would have been next level. I think this movie is not quite that level in terms of like
reach. If we could, like I think that leads into the review, I guess, a little bit in terms of the movie is. I liked it and I thought it was good, but it isn't an Infinity War or it isn't a No Way Home or anything like that. Yeah. I would say it's more, you kind of got to go into it thinking it's more in the lines of the first Doctor Strange in terms of what to expect. And it has a little bit more in it than the first Doctor Strange, but it certainly isn't a tentpole kind of Marvel movie that we have expected in the past.
Yeah, I think you do have to temper your expectations. I don't think they ever set it up to be like a No Way Home or an Infinity War. I think the fans kind of like speculated and they started like thinking that it was going to be, but I don't think it was ever meant to be. I think it is a step up from the previous Doctor Strange movie in terms of stakes and and so on. But yeah, it's not like the event movie, and don't expect like cameos galore. I think people are like thinking like all kinds of characters are going to turn up in this. There are some great surprises. So we're not going to spoil that. There are some great surprises, and you're going to have fun with that stuff. But it's not like crazy cameos everywhere. And I think the title also leads you into like a sense of like it's going to be some crazy, multiverse. Like they're going to go into thousands of different universes or something. But it's not really that.
I think people expected a kind of Into the Spider-Verse situation as well, where there's many different universes colliding, but it even isn't on the level of Into the Spider-Verse either.
Yeah. So we're kind of talking about our mixed feelings on this, but we can quickly talk some positives. So I thought all the performances were good. Benedict Cumberbatch is... Yeah, I mean, he's always good as Doctor Strange. I don't think this is, surprisingly, I don't think this is the best Doctor Strange that we've seen. Like, he's good in the movie, but I still think he was better in Infinity War for what he was in Infinity War, in terms of what you see from his abilities and stuff. Like, I think that was just such a big step up from what we saw in his origin movie that it was like, wow, this guy's amazing. This one, he does some cool stuff, but it's not like it wasn't really maybe it was on par with Infinity War in terms of some of the stuff he does, but it wasn't any level above that. But he was good. He was good for what he was in, and the plot does revolve. I mean, being the main character, it does revolve around him, but he's not like he doesn't move the plot forward that much. Like the stuff that happens around him, and he kind of has to react to stuff that's happening. Wanda, on the other hand, though, is very important to the plot, and I thought Elizabeth Olsen was really good. Another sort of mixed thing I have with this: not everyone would have watched WandaVision. It leans really hard into WandaVision. Like if you hadn't seen it, I think you would be a bit confused in this movie.
Yeah, you would. But also, where she finishes off in WandaVision and where she starts off in this movie does have a little bit of a disconnect as well.
Definitely. I think that's another... I would say it is a negative. I think where they take her character in this is not that consistent with where WandaVision ended. Or even if you missed WandaVision and you just watched Endgame, that's like a massive disconnect. Like you're like, what just happened?
But she does really well in her role, definitely. And I would say she's probably the highlight of the film. But there is a bit of a disconnect if you're looking at previous movies and comparing it.
Yes. So something definitely has happened in between, and we can get into that in spoilers. America Chavez was good. I
thought she was pretty decent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a bit too much happening in this movie because they did introduce this new character, but they don't really. I mean, you get a bit of backstory, you get a bit of development, but they don't really like. I feel like you could have spent a bit more time with her.
And I think the film suffers a little bit from its short runtime as well. It's quite a short movie, clocking in about 2 hours. So, like, the pacing is very fast and lots of stuff happens very quickly, essentially.
Yeah. So I think it could have been a bit longer. Even the first Doctor Strange at that point in time, I think, or it might still be the shortest MCU movie. I think this could have benefited from a little bit more of a runtime. And I thought the horror themes in this movie. So at one point in time, it does become like a fully Sam Raimi movie. Like there's parts where you're like, this is definitely directed by Sam Raimi, and it's in the second half. And I thought that was really good. They obviously used the strengths of the director really well in those scenes. And it does become, definitely more of a horror type movie at one point in time. And then also it is, I think they definitely pushed the PG-13 as far as they could for this movie, because it
very violent.
It does have. It's not like in your face gore, but there is gore in the movie. Which
you probably don't want to take your younger kids to this one.
Yeah, I think it's not for the younger ones. But I thought that was a positive. I thought they did a good job with using Sam Raimi's strengths, but also they didn't use him. It's not an out-and-out Sam Raimi movie. There are elements of it that are Sam Raimi, but there are definitely elements of it that are like Marvel, like just the factory template Marvel stuff. So it's kind of I don't think it's completely Sam Raimi's vision, because he did join the project after it was conceived. So it's not really his. I think there are elements of Scott Derrickson's vision in there as well. He's still an executive producer on this. So it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of stuff. And I think they also had to react because there was a shift in schedules. So No Way Home came out before this. I think it was initially meant to come out after this. Because this was delayed due to COVID, they had to react to what happened in No Way Home as well. Because I think initially this was just meant to follow on from what happened in Endgame. But Doctor Strange happened to be in No Way Home as well, and he did stuff in No Way Home, so they kind of had to put that in. And you can tell that there are some stuff that didn't quite match together in this movie. But I think we're making it sound like we didn't, like, for me anyway, I still really enjoyed it. I still thought it was pretty good, but I was a little, maybe because my expectations were quite high as well, I was a little underwhelmed by the end of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the movies that suffers from high anticipation. And I guess if you go into this not expecting anything, then you'll probably come out quite pleased. But going in expecting a lot, you'll... it's bound to unfortunately disappoint.
Yes. This was how I had, remember before No Way Home, I was a little bit apprehensive about that movie because people were talking about, oh, this person's going to be in that movie, this person. And it turned out that all of them were actually in the movie. So like Daredevil and obviously the other two Spider-Man were in the movie. Spoilers for No Way Home if you still haven't seen it. But that paid off. Like the payoff for that movie was much better than the payoffs that we got in this movie. Like there were cameos, but I would say they were not really meaningful.
Yeah, underwhelming for the most part. And some of them ruined in the trailer as well. There was one really excellent one that unfortunately got ruined for me prior to going into seeing it. And I think on YouTube. But if I went in without knowing that one, then I would have been pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah. I was very excited for one of them. We can talk about that in spoilers. I don't usually get that excited in movies, and my wife was like, "What's happened to this guy? Has he just gone crazy all of a sudden?" Because started clapping and did a bit of a cheer at one point, but. It was good at one point, but then they were the way they used the cameos wasn't really that impactful in the end. Anyway, we can get into that in spoilers, but don't expect. Just if you haven't seen it yet, do temper your expectations, and I think you'll enjoy it much more. Anything else non-spoiler?
No, I think that was kind of non-spoiler. It's definitely a good movie. I would say it's probably like a mid-pack MCU. Nothing special. Nothing that I would try and revisit straight away, but I definitely still enjoyed it.
So but saying that in Phase 4 movies so far, so we've had Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, and then this. So where does it rank in terms of those?
Probably sits in a similar spot to like a Black Widow, I would say, around there. Better than Eternals, not as good as Shang-Chi or No Way Home.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I actually did watch Eternals on the flight here. And it actually was all right.
I didn't hate Eternals either. I think Eternals is an okay movie. but I think this is better than Eternals. Yeah.
Yeah. On the second viewing, I actually thought Eternals was maybe because, again, my expectations, I'd seen it already and I didn't enjoy it as much the first time, but I thought Eternals was okay. This is probably still better than it, but yeah, it's probably on about the same level as probably Black Widow, like you said. It's not as good as Shang-Chi, or definitely not as good as No Way Home. All right. I think we can jump into spoilers. So, obviously, if you haven't seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, go watch it. We still recommend it. It's still a cognitive recalibration. So go watch it.
Still probably going to have some ramifications going into the future of the MCU as well. So, I guess if you're invested in the MCU, that you're probably going to watch this anyway. You're not going to listen to our review.
You're definitely going to watch it. Yeah. One thing before we jump into spoilers, one thing I will say is the way I feel like the stakes were a bit low in this one. Like they should have been higher than what they were. I think the way they set up the multiverse and the way stuff happens, it didn't feel like it was like universe redefining as it should have been. Like this should have been like universe redefining. Like this should have been branching off into like multiple things for the MCU. I think it still does, but it didn't feel as impactful. It didn't feel like, wow, this is going to change everything forever. It was more like, I felt like Loki was more impactful than this, the Loki TV show. This was kind of like, yeah, well, stuff happens, but it wasn't as crazy as what it could have been. All right. Well, anyway, with on that note, we'll jump into spoilers. So go watch the movie and come back to this point to listen to our spoilers.
NetJets, the global private aviation leader, is known for personalizing every detail of your travels. Because NetJet Standard is not just to meet their definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours. Discover more at netjets.com.
All right. So, question number one. So, America Chavez.
Yeah.
So the start of this movie starts with her and an alternate Doctor Strange. So it literally starts with an action sequence. And it starts with, I'm pretty sure it was Spanish. So I was like, well, did I accidentally like walk into a theater that has a Spanish screening or something? But then, only the first two dialogues are in Spanish. So they don't really explain how she got her powers, where she's from. I think at one point in time they do say that she doesn't coexist in different multiverses or different universes. So she is a singular entity that can go in between universes. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So there's only one of her. There's not multiple versions of her. Do you have any background on like where she's from, like where she got her powers? Because her powers are pretty powerful and unique.
Yeah. They go through it a little bit in the movie. She's technically born with them. But they don't delve deeply into it. But yeah, she's from that weird alternate planet, I guess, where she has her two mums.
Yeah. And she gets scared of a bee and then
I don't know a great deal about the character, but yeah, I don't know if there's any further backstory really needed. I was pretty happy with that. Like, she was born with the powers. She has a power to jump through multiverses, and that's pretty much all the information you need, I guess.
Yeah, well, she plays a pretty pivotal role. Like, she's the main plot device. Like, if she wasn't in the movie, it wouldn't make sense, essentially. So, but yeah, I feel like she's there, but she doesn't also do much at the same time until like the very end. Even though she has, pretty powerful abilities. And then we jump into our universe. So what's our universe?
616, which is the same that they use in the comics.
Yeah. And then they do end up going to some other universes in this, but one of the main ones is 838.
Yeah, so that was one of the disappointing aspects for me was I thought they'll jump through various universes, but they only visit 2 in the end, which is they visit this one, which is this is the one with the Illuminati. Is that 813?
838, I think.
838, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can double check that, but yeah.
So this one's, I guess this one's the cameo one.
Yeah. It's the cameo. It's the cameo universe. You're right. They only do visit 2 universes. So is it really the Multiverse of Madness? I guess. The other universe they visit is the one with like the evil Doctor Strange.
The other universe only has 1 person in it, so it's a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah, and that one before we jump into 838, so it is 838. So the evil Doctor Strange universe, is that the Doctor Strange from What If, or that's another Doctor Strange?
I think it's another one. They haven't completely confirmed or denied it, I don't think, but I don't think it's the same one. I think it's a different Doctor Strange.
I think it is also different because 1 second. You're going to get this unedited as well. Something caught in my throat. But I think it is a different one because the one in What If, isn't he like stuck in that bubble or whatever?
Yeah. And I think in the end, he's quite remorseful in the What If one. So I don't think he's fully evil.
Yeah. So this Doctor Strange, he obviously does dark magic because he's got the Darkhold.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's got the third eye or whatever.
I don't know. If one of your questions, what's with the third eye? I don't know. I don't know.
Does he have the third? Does he have the third eye in What If? I can't remember.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, so it must be something like when you become evil, you get a third eye.
I don't think it's when you're evil. I think it's when you get a certain amount of power or something. It opens up another eye. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So
because skipping to the end, our Doctor Strange gets a third eye as well.
Yeah, because at one point in time, the other thing with this movie, I guess Doctor Strange, it feels a bit like, maybe it was meant to, but he feels very desperate and he feels like he doesn't have any options. Like he's kind of like following what America Chavez tells him, like he needs to get this other book, this sorcerer's book or whatever. And then he does get it, but then it like almost immediately gets destroyed by Wanda.
I guess what we haven't discussed yet is Wanda is the primary villain in this movie, and she doesn't take a turn. She's the villain from the very start. Pretty much in the first scene, she gets introduced. She's
the villain. So that I didn't expect. I don't know if this was like, for me anyway, I didn't actually think she was going to be the villain in this movie. I thought there was another villain, and she was just going to be helping them. Or like she turns, but she wasn't going to be a villain from the beginning. But literally, she's introduced, and then she's the villain. And she's not just she's not like a. I think she's meant to sort of be a sympathetic villain, but not really. Like she's
almost
just pretty much
irredeemable.
Bad.
Yeah. She kills a lot of people.
Yeah, from the very beginning, and like, like they spend a lot of time like talking about how she wants her kids back, and like her whole motivation is that she wants to get America Chavez's powers so that she can skip multiverses, like universes, and then go live in a universe where she has kids. That's her motivation. And I feel like in WandaVision, she kind of does come to terms with that. Like, she's not completely over it, but, at the end credit scene in WandaVision, you do see her playing around with the Darkhold. So I guess she could have become what she is in this movie. But I feel like it was too much of a jump. I think they could have spent a bit more time actually developing that and getting to her becoming what she is in this.
Yeah.
But it's just she's just bad from
I
the
agree
get-go.
with that as well. Yeah. And like Doctor Strange doesn't have that many dealings with Wanda. I thought it might be a bit more impactful to try and, I don't know, bring someone that she has a bit more of a connection with into the movie, like, I don't know, like Hawkeye or someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when does she actually talk to Doctor Strange? I actually don't recall
I think
any
this
time.
is the first time they talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and even in Infinity War, they're not in the same place. Like, he's on Titan and she's on Earth. So they don't even talk to each other then. So I don't think they ever actually talk to each other. Maybe at Tony's funeral or something. That might have been when they, like, and obviously in the Endgame fight, like, they would have met then. But I don't think they've actually had that much interaction. It didn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I thought she was very good in her role and very menacing, but like the disconnect I didn't like the disconnect between her and the previous movies and what she became. That did seem like it was a smooth arc.
Yes, yeah.
And then saying that at the end when she turns back to the good side at the end, and her turn felt very sudden when does turn.
Yeah, because they leaned so far into her being a villain. Like, she was doing, like, irredeemable stuff throughout the movie, right? And then suddenly she just switches back. It didn't really make sense either.
Yeah. So I felt that her arc was rushed.
And that arc is, like, integral to the movie. Like, that arc has to work for the movie to work because she's the main antagonist in the movie. And if she's not right, the movie's just not going to feel right. And I think that's why we're just mixed on this. Like, there are elements of this movie that are great, but there are elements that are just messy, I guess.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah, let's get to the best part, and the probably the best part of the movie is when she kills the Illuminati.
Yeah, so they set her up as, like, she's super powerful. Like, Doctor Strange has
Very
no
OP.
answers, essentially, which is another thing I didn't like. I felt like Doctor Strange should have been maybe not on an even footing, but he should have been able to compete with her a bit more. He basically just gives up. He's like, I can't compete with her. At one point, he's like, I can't do anything to her, which I felt like he should have been able to do something because he's still pretty powerful. Like, the way he fights Thanos in that sequence on Titan, he's pretty powerful. So I think he could have given her a better fight. But anyway, she is super OP in this. The reason I did like the cameos, so we can talk about the cameos. So obviously they introduced the Illuminati on Earth 838.
Also, in my screening, when Baron Mordo says we're the Illuminati, like 50% of the theater laughed. Like, they thought it was like a comedic thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm guessing they thought it was not. Like.
So where did you watch it?
I watched it at Monash.
Oh, yeah. This was, my screen was different. My screen was very different. And this isn't like a comic educated audience. When, even before the Illuminati thing came up, Christine says something about Baxter Foundation.
Yeah, and then people cheered.
There was like, it wasn't like a massive cheer, but there was like, there was some people like getting excited. You know that they know their stuff then, because Baxter Foundation is obviously Fantastic Four related.
I think in my theater they probably thought the Illuminati was like going to be like Jay-Z and Beyonce and like big world leaders and like lizards and stuff.
Actual lizards, no, this was, and then obviously when he said like that was when the full reveal was happening, Illuminati, and like everyone was like,
But for the people that don't know, the Illuminati are an organization in the Marvel comics, so it's not the
lizards disguised as humans.
No, not that one. Yeah.
Yes. And then when they do the reveals, it was good. So the first one they show is Black Bolt.
I can't believe they brought back the guy from Inhumans.
The Inhumans, yeah. First I was like, because I've seen some episodes from that show. So I couldn't remember exactly how that guy looks like, but I was like, he looks, maybe they got an actor that looks similar to him. But it was the same actor, which is, which makes sense. He was actually... I
think that was a bigger surprise for me than John Krasinski.
Well, maybe because that was ruined for you.
Yeah.
And then after that, they had Captain Marvel, but not Brie Larson Captain Marvel, but...
it's Monica Rambeau, or is it Melissa Rambeau?
Maria Rambeau.
Maria, yeah, I always get those mixed up.
Who's the mother of
Monica Rambeau?
Yeah. So she was Captain Marvel in this particular universe, and then obviously John Krasinski, which was that's the part where I kind of lost it a bit, because for months I was like, and they were denying it as well. Like this is just a trick that Marvel does now, but I actually believed that John Krasinski, like I wanted John Krasinski, but I didn't ever think that he would actually become what's his name, Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards. Yeah, I like it was essentially just fan casting, right? Like I never thought that he would actually be in it, but yeah, it was him, which was great. It was good to see him, and then.
They also had Haley Atwell as Captain Carter.
As Captain Carter, yeah, which I kind of expected that one, because I think you do see glimpses.
I think you see it in the trailer somewhere. Yeah.
So I kind of expected that one. And Professor X, I kind of expected.
He was in the trailer. Voice. Yeah.
So that one, the crowd lost it for Professor X as well, because you see him on his like yellow.
Yeah, comic accurate yellow scooter thing.
Yeah. So that whole scene, people losing it, but the point where I don't usually lose it, but the point where I lost it was actually John Krasinski. I don't know why. I was just happy to see him. So that was good.
Probably the biggest reveal of the movie was John Krasinski, and another huge reveal which people might have missed, but John Krasinski says his name and he says he's part of the Fantastic Four, and then it's like a throwaway dialogue that Doctor Strange says, and he says, I thought you guys died in the 60s. So in our universe, the Fantastic Four died in the 60s. So I think that the Fantastic Four movie is probably going to be set somewhat in the 60s.
That's very interesting. I actually missed that because the crowd was kind of
loud.
Losing it a bit at that stage. Like, not loud, but I think there was a bit happening, and I missed some of the dialogue because there are some quips in between, right? Like he's like with Black Bolt, he's like, "Oh, does his breath smell or something?" Right? He's like, there's some jokes in between, but I missed some of those. That is interesting. So maybe they're like, I don't think they're dead. I think they're just like. Somewhere.
I think they're lost in space. So I think it'll be half set in the 60s and half in the...
and they come back. Yeah. And he also does say when Wanda confronts him that he does have a wife.
And he has kids as well.
And he has kids. Yeah. So now I think it's almost certainly set up for Emily Blunt to be...
But they could very easily cast someone else as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think they can show John Krasinski in this movie and not have John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic in the actual Fantastic Four movie.
Possibly.
I just don't think I don't think they can do that now because he's like the fan favorite, right? So once they like tease him, I don't think you can not do that. But Emily Blunt, we'll see. It might not be her, but it'd be nice if it is. Cool.
But anyway, she kills all of them.
Yeah, so this was the part I felt like they could have done a little bit more with these cameos. Like, she can still kill them, but she literally just kills them straight away. Like, they don't even do anything.
Black Bolt and Mr. Fantastic die pretty much immediately. And then Captain Carter and Captain Marvel put up a little bit of a fight.
I think Captain Marvel, realistically, she'll probably kill Mr. Fantastic, Black Bolt. I mean, Black Bolt was a bit of a cop-out. Like,
Black Bolt could have killed her if he talked sooner, but, you know.
Yeah, Yeah, that was a bit of a cop-out. Mr. Fantastic, okay, fair enough. Captain Carter, I think she probably punched above her weight, to be honest. I think she was definitely outmatched. But Captain Marvel, I think technically she can go toe-to-toe with her. And she does
maybe
a little bit.
On this universe, she can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
some
anyway,
brutal deaths, though.
Definitely. Captain Carter was pretty brutal. Black Bolt was pretty brutal.
Mr. Fantastic's pretty brutal as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Carter's probably the most brutal. She gets chopped in half.
Yeah. And also, and then Captain Marvel gets a massive statue, like impaled by, dropped on it. Yeah.
And then Charles and Scarlet Witch have like a mind battle, and she
bit of a mind battle.
Well. Yeah.
I think technically Charles should be able to fight her as well.
I think they're both mutants, but I think she's actually more powerful.
Yeah.
Even in the comics, she's more powerful.
I think so, yeah. I just think they made her way too powerful in this.
She was very OP, yeah.
It was just like no one can fight her, essentially. Which, yeah. And then there were elements after that sequence where they definitely lean into Sam Raimi horror. So there's a sequence where she's like chasing them, and she's like, I think she's like got a broken leg or something, so she's like limping, and it's definitely like a bit of definitely a horror sequence where she looks a bit crazy as well, and she's like breaking through walls and stuff, which was very effective. I like that. I think if you when they start releasing clips for this, like 3 months down the line, I think certain clips will be really good in isolation. So that would be one of them. The cameo one would be one of them. But like when you combine it together and like watch it in the movie, I feel like there is definitely disconnects. Like it doesn't feel as coherent as it should
as it could have been. Yeah, I agree. That's probably its biggest downfall. And also, I think this movie is not for everyone, because there was many people that were in my theater that were probably laughing at moments that were probably meant to be a bit more serious. Like there's a part where Doctor Strange like he takes over like a dead body in another universe, and I think it was meant to be serious, but people found it a bit funny how it was kind of filmed, I guess. And I would say it's the Sam Raimi-ness of it. Like it's very much if you imagine like 2000 Spider-Man, it's kind of like that kind of feel to some of it.
Yeah.
Like the close-up shots of the face. And yeah.
I think there's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are like much more muted than this. This is like next level. This was more Evil Dead than Spider-Man for sure. Yeah. So it's definitely not fair. But like even my wife was like, yeah, this is a bit like gory. And
one of the people I went to the screening with said Fantastic Beasts was better than this, which I thoroughly disagree with. But yeah.
Yeah, I want to know who that person is, but I also disagree with that. Well, our Fantastic Beasts episode's up for those of you who are interested, but we were not impressed. When I was editing that, I just realized how like bored we were. Like we just didn't even want to talk about that movie. So no, this is much better than that. Despite all its downfalls, I think it's interesting. At least it's interesting. Despite all of the there's mixed stuff about it, but it still keeps you entertained.
I think it's better than most Marvel movies in terms of they went for a big swing as well. It's not a safe movie. They did go for it. I just don't think it all lands, unfortunately. But I like that they took a chance with it.
Yeah. And going back to the cameos, like I said, it was definitely short-lived. We could have seen a bit more from them. There weren't any more cameos, so people who were expecting like, I don't know, Hugh Jackman or like Deadpool or whatever else people were expecting, it's not in there.
And I think that's a bit of a crushing defeat for all the people that were expecting the huge cameos. And I don't think it needed the huge cameos, and that's not That's not the movie's fault.
Or Tom Cruise's Iron Man.
I thought that would have been really cool if that happened. But I think expectations is a big thing that kind of ruined this a bit as well. Not ruined it, but it made it a touch disappointing. It's like, that was it. They only visited one universe.
Yeah. And the reason I feel like this is mixed is also because, as we've already established, the crowd I was watching it with were pretty comic educated, I'm pretty sure, because they were all, all the beats that they wanted the comic book fans to get, they got. At the end of the movie, it was like, it wasn't an excited crowd leaving the theater. Like, it was a bit like, okay, like it was
muted. Yeah,
it was muted. It wasn't like people weren't talking to each other. They weren't like discussing heaps of stuff. It was just people just left. So I think the impact that they wanted the movie to have, they just didn't have. Even I was like, it was fun. Like, there was some things I wanted to discuss, but not a lot. Like, there were some things I was a bit confused about, which we'll get into in a second. So yeah, but still, I had a good time. Like, it's still worth a watch, definitely. But it isn't universe breaking as it could have been, because they kind of, the way it ends. So Wanda comes to terms, I guess. She's like, what I'm doing is wrong. After she sees what happens when she meets her kids in another universe. And then she's like, what I'm doing is wrong. And she destroys a Darkhold in every universe, which is also like, okay, you're kind of undoing, this can't happen ever again. So you're destroying it in every universe. Okay. And then does she die? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to kill her, right?
Well, it's kind of like that comic book thing. If you don't see the dead body, no one's really dead. So like, they say she's dead, but they could easily bring her back if they needed to.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens with that. Oh, what we didn't talk about was there is a sequence where they do jump through multiple universes, very briefly. It's kind of like that sequence in Doctor Strange in the first Doctor Strange, where he's going through the different dimensions. And you see, like, he's like growing fingers on fingers and all that stuff, like that trippy sequence. It's a bit like that. And they're like going to a sequence where they're like all paint. They go into a sequence where they're like animated. They go into another one where they're like blocks, which was pretty cool, but it was like a minute of the movie. So I think they could have explored some of those a bit more.
Like, to compare it to another multiverse movie we recently saw, Everything Everywhere All at Once, that had so many weird and wonderful shit in it. So this one is doesn't explore the multiverse as much as that movie did. Yeah,
definitely. It was literally just in that sequence, which was cool, but they don't really follow it any more than that. America Chavez's character, so towards the end, she does realize that she has powers. I mean, like, she knows she has powers, but she realized she can sort of control her powers, which, I felt like that moment should have been like much more, like, it didn't feel earned as much as it should have been, because they set it up as like this inspirational speech where, like, Doctor Strange is like, you've been sent, every universe you sent us to is a universe that we should have gone to. So obviously there was some method behind her madness, but
it felt like a sudden turn, similar to what happens with Wanda. So they have good arcs in these movies, but when they happen, it doesn't feel well earned, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the only earned arc in this movie was actually the arc of Doctor Strange, because they keep going back to him, how like different people ask him whether he's happy or not, and he keeps saying that he is, but he probably really isn't. And I think it's about him coming to terms with, I guess, his own life and what he's committed to. So I think that was more earned than the other ones. Even that could have been better, but I think that was done reasonably well compared to the other ones. But he also has a third eye now, so I don't know how he's feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else in the main movie that you wanted to discuss?
No, I think it's a pretty short movie, so there's not much that happens, to be honest. What we discussed is pretty much all of it.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that it was that short until you told me, because I thought it was longer. Just because of the amount of content that's in it, I thought, this should be like 2.5 hours. And I didn't actually check my watch at any time in the movie, so I wasn't monitoring how long it was going for. But yeah, the actual official runtime is only just over 2 hours.
Yeah. And that's including credits and everything.
Yeah. So it is quite short. I think it could have been helped if it was, there's a lot happening, right? Like there's stuff with Wanda, which they definitely could have elaborated on. There's stuff with America Chavez that should have elaborated on. And even Doctor Strange's stuff, it felt a bit rushed as well. So definitely they could have. This is one instance where we would have liked it to be a bit longer than the actual movie was.
Yeah, normally we're happy with a short movie, but this one I would have liked to have a bit longer.
Yes. Okay, so before we get into the end credit sequences, what do you think of the Avatar trailer?
It was okay.
Yeah. It was the most quiet the cinema was. And even the other trailers, there were like some reactions, but it's the most quiet trailer I've ever watched. Especially for like the first time people are watching this thing. There was no reaction. And even I was like,
it looked good, but like
visually it looked good. Visually it looked stunning, but like story-wise, I'm not like, they didn't really give away much of the story, but
same
really
thing
care.
with the first movie. The visuals were great, and like everyone loved that movie to begin with, and that's mostly on the visuals. But this one, like, I don't care much about the visuals if the story's not going to be good. So, and I don't think the story's going to be good, but we'll see. Maybe it'll surprise me.
It just did feel the first Avatar movie came out in 2009. This is coming out 13 years later. It didn't feel like it was worth 13 years of waiting for that movie. Visually it looks great, but it doesn't look like so much better than other movies that have come out in the last 13 years.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it could be amazing. So we'll reserve our judgment until we actually watch that movie. Another thing in AMC theaters here, Nicole Kidman does this thing. She does this like little promotion thing about returning to the cinema. And for some reason, people cheered for that. I don't know why. They're just fans of Nicole Kidman.
Fair enough. She's Australian.
Yeah, it was good to hear an Australian accent, actually. One thing I'll say about traveling at the moment, there's not many travelers. A lot of places we're going to, they're pretty quiet.
Empty.
So people can tell straight away that we're not from here. Firstly, because of our accent, and I guess the way we look as well. So, yeah. Back to the movie. So, end credit sequences. There's two.
One of them, joke one, I guess.
Yeah, one of them, like Marvel do. I don't really like it when they do these joke ones, but yeah, okay. There was a joke one at the end where we didn't talk about this, but
Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi's Lucky Charm, I guess. He's in every one of his movies.
Yes. He got cheers as well in our theater.
Yeah.
So he has a cameo. Doctor Strange casts a spell on him to slap himself continuously for 3 weeks or something. And by the end of the movie, it stops, and then he just says it's over, and then the movie's over, which was okay. As far as like the joke ones go, it's probably not the best one, but it was okay. I think the best one's probably the Captain America one still. Whereas like he talks about the patients and like
it's in Spider-Man. That's in the Spider-Man one. Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought that one was actually clever.
A lady in my theater absolutely loved it. She was cackling.
Oh, okay.
She was she found it hilarious. I thought it was funny how hilarious she found it.
I actually would have liked it if there was another serious one because of the stuff that happens in this movie. Like maybe a Fantastic Four one or an X-Men one or anything else, but okay, it was fine. The first one I was a bit confused about because I don't know this character, but I did mention her name just earlier in the episode, so I looked this up later, but apparently Charlize Theron, so it was firstly Charlize Theron turns up, and she's playing Clea. Apparently.
I didn't even know Charlize Theron was cast, so that was a surprise for me.
Yeah, so that was a surprise. I don't know what her character is, and I also don't know like what's going on because she's like an incursion. You create an incursion, and then she opens up a portal, and they jump into the portal. And he's like, he doesn't even question it. He's just like very willingly just follows her, like this person that he's just met. So I was a bit confused about that.
I don't know much about the character, but I got a little bit of background, which might provide a bit of context for you. So she's Dormammu's niece.
Dormammu's niece, okay.
So and they're going
they were going to the Dark Dimension.
They're going to the Dark Dimension, yeah. So she's the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension, and she eventually becomes the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth when Doctor Strange dies in the comics. And she's also Doctor Strange's wife.
Okay. That gives a bit more context. Why does she look normal and Dormammu is like this huge monster?
Yeah, it's like a maternal thing. I don't know. Don't look into that.
Yeah, initially I thought she was that that X-Men that can open portals with a sword?
Yes, yeah. Psylocke,
yeah.
Yeah.
Initially I thought it was her, but no, it's someone else.
It's Clea. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Charlize Theron, another big actor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, that was, I guess that was fine. As far as end credit sequences go, I think overall they were a bit underwhelming. Like, what's the best end credit sequence that we've ever had in Marvel movies?
Ever?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I think that Nick Fury one in the first movie, first Iron Man, still hard to beat, just out of pure shock value. It's a pretty good one.
It's the first time. Yeah. I think what were the Avengers ones? The first Avenger one? One of them's a shawarma one. And then was one of them Thanos? Yeah, I think one of them was Thanos.
Yeah, one of them was Thanos. First Avengers movie, and one of them was Thanos. Second Avengers, it's Thanos again. So, for the Avengers movies, it's always been Thanos. I'm trying to think if there's any really good ones. Sometimes it's just the anticipation of waiting for it more than anything.
Yeah. I think the Winter Soldier ones were pretty good because one of them was introducing Wanda and Quicksilver. I can't remember the other one, but I remember the other one was pretty good as well in that one. The other one was with Bucky and how Bucky's like getting his memory back.
Yeah, actually a good one is the end of Black Panther when he goes and gives Bucky the arm. I thought that was a really good one.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's been some pretty good ones over the years. These were, they were fine compared to those. I think Marvel's, like, they've set such high standards for themselves just across the board that eventually it is going to get hard to keep, exceeding or even meeting those standards. So, yeah.
Thor Ragnarok also has a good one where Thanos' ship shows up.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that one's good too. Yeah. No, there's been some good ones. You can, if you got a favorite one, let us know. Out of all the Marvel movies. All right. Anything else on this movie? It's late for you and early for me, so.
You're tired at the start, and now I'm tired at the end. It's unfortunately I would normally be okay, but I got a Bucks party tomorrow that I need to wake up early to go to. So,
how early are you going?
Like 9:30ish.
That is early.
Yeah,
for a Bucks party. Okay,
and unfortunately, I still need to set some stuff up, so I've left things late.
All right, fair enough. We'll let you go very quickly. So, if people want to get in touch with us and tell us about their thoughts on the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, there was a thing I wanted to say throughout this review.
Your dad joke.
That is, my dad joke for the episode. So, can you tell us whether this cast a spell on you or not?
I didn't. No, just straight up no.
Okay, so how do people tell us whether it casts a spell on them?
They can contact us via email at cognitiverecalibrationpodcast@gmail.com, or we are on all other social media platforms at Cognitive Recalibration.
Yeah, so that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, so you can contact us on any of those. So if you want to support the podcast, you can do so by giving us a review on Spotify or iTunes, because that makes us more discoverable on their search engine. So when you search review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you'll find us as one of the first ones that comes up. Great. So that brings us to the end of this episode. So you're going to get this, like I said, you're going to get this fully unedited with all the mistakes and ums and ahs. And
I think it was a pretty smooth transition.
Yeah. It actually wasn't too bad. Maybe because in our mind we knew that this was going straight up. So we need
to do every episode like this.
Yeah, maybe we should. Cool. So next episode we will be reviewing Moon Knight. I'm 4 episodes in. The season has concluded, right?
Yeah, it's finished now.
So I'll be finishing that shortly. Have you finished it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. So I'll be shortly finishing that, and then we'll see when we record that. Either while I'm still here in the US for another couple of weeks, but we'll see if we do it while I'm here or maybe once I'm back. But you'll get that as the next episode pretty soon. How are you finding it? You've watched it. So how was it?
I very much enjoyed it. I think it suffers from the same kind of issues that a lot of the other Marvel TV shows suffer from. But overall, I thought it was one of the better ones.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So far, I am enjoying it, and I think it's something pretty different from the Marvel universe as well. And it's another character that's very much should be R-rated, right? So I think they've done well.
I think it's got a bit more violence than some of the other shows as well.
Yeah,
not as violent as this movie though. This movie definitely the most violent Marvel property I've ever seen, other than Deadpool.
Yes, yeah. But then we've got Miss Marvel coming up a bit later, which is probably not going to be very violent because it's looks like it's more of a kids-oriented show. So we'll see how that goes as well. Another New York, I think she lives in New Jersey, but close to New York character.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you're all staying safe, and we'll see you in the next one for Moon Knight. See you later.
See ya.